and welcome to the Divorced Women's Guide podcast, where we talk about the things us divorcees are thinking, but not always talking about, as we turn our divorce into the best gift we've ever been given. And I do so with a little bit of sass and a whole lot of class. I am your host, Wendy Sterling, founder of the Divorce Rehab. I am here to support you in this transition phase of your life so you can start your new best chapter on your own terms. After all, that's what I did after my own divorce. And now it is my mission to change the conversation around divorce and help you see why your divorce, like mine, was the best gift you ever received. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. I am so happy that you have decided to tune in today because I am here with someone who I feel like you need to pinch me because she is a guest on my podcast today because I've been listening to and following her for many years. I am joined today by Dana Malstaff. Hello, Dana. How are you?
I am great. I'm excited to be here. Although I just came back from a vacationing trip hiking at like the Grand Canyon. My lips are really chapped and I'm seeing myself on video and they look huge. So I'm going to try. I have like clown lips today. So I apologize to everybody.
No, they look beautiful and well moisturized. But Dana is the founder of Boss Mom, and I'm going to introduce her in a moment. But Dana is going to join me today on the podcast to share a little bit about her story. We were chatting before we turned on the record button, and there were probably about 15 different topics that we could talk about. So we're going to kind of wing it and see where we go. But ultimately, I think that one of the themes that run through a lot of the topics that we talked about have to do with the fact that, life just isn't fair, even in divorce. And so Dana, welcome. I'm excited to have you here today to have this conversation. So I'm going to introduce you to everybody before we get started. So Dana is the CEO and founder of Boss Mom, and she launched the Boss Mom brand with her first book, Boss Mom, The Ultimate Guide to Raising a Business and Nurturing Your Family Like a Pro in 2015 that started an international movement. The Boss Moms Facebook community has organically grown to over 50,000 members, and there are now Boss Mom local meetups in over 80 cities, which is incredible. And Dana believes that we need to show our children that doing what we love can also be financially viable. And you have been an incredible role model, not only to your children, but for the rest of us entrepreneurs out there, me being one of them. So truly, I am honored to have you here today. Thank you so much. And I would really love for you, because you have so we were chatting before, you have an amazing background and story about you and your life and how you've navigated your past. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience today a little bit more about your story and really what inspired you to come onto this podcast specifically to talk about divorce.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, where do I start with my story? In fourth grade, I could probably go back that far. Boss Mom was born because I quit my job. And by quit my job, which is the entrepreneurial term for, I got let go because the husband and the wife got a divorce. Speaking of divorce, the husband was the CMO, the wife was the CEO. They got a divorce. And so everybody that he hired was kind of getting kicked out. I saw that and I went in, it was like, give me 90 days. I worked out a deal. It was my first like negotiating thing. And when I was done with that, I realized I wanted to start my own business. And so I started my own business on New Year's was my last day of work. Everybody took me out for tequila shots and I was pregnant. I got pregnant. So I joke like Boss Mom is true. Like I became an entrepreneur and a mom on the same 24 hours. I became a boss mom literally in the same day. And then I realized what most moms realize, that I feel alone and isolated. I feel like I am really good at a lot of things and I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know how to be a mom. I knew I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom, which also made me feel like a horrible human being because what kind of mom doesn't want to be around their kids 24 hours a day? Now that I've got a 5 and a 7-year-old, like who would want to be around their children 24 hours a day? That's like even back in the day, like you had communities where everybody lived near each other and you had 2 or 3 generations in a home. Like there was never a time when you spent 24 hours a day with your kids. So the idea that we're supposed to want to do that, and that like is in women's head, is just a sad state of affairs in my opinion. But yeah, so I woke up one morning and just was in a little mastermind group. I'd been doing consulting for content strategy, helping people make courses online. I'd make some courses online, but not really making good money, but not consistent, not a brand. And woke up and one of our mastermind members said, hey, I help people write books. If anybody wants to write a book. I was a journalism major, so I always want to write one. Sat down, thought I was going to write a book about content strategy called Expand Your Reach. And Boss Mom is what ended up happening. And just this, I've always had a fascination with behavioral psychology. I've taken a lot of courses and content on it. And what I love about behavioral psychology is that it is a departure from, let me put it this way. Behavioral psychology became a thing because economics doesn't take into account that we are irrational human beings. Behavioral psychology was the alternative to people who said economics says that this is what should happen. And you say, but that's not what happens because we're all ridiculously flawed and we're never going to do what you think in a textbook we're going to do. And so behavioral psychology became a thing. And I have a belief that we are completely flawed, and it's a beautiful thing, and that part of the fun of life is how messed up we all are, and it yields beautiful things and it yields painful things. And I am a big believer that you should the Khalil Gibran wrote a book called The Prophet Call, and one of the quotes in it is that you should laugh all your laughter and cry all your tears. And until you do that, you cannot truly experience love, if you can't experience pain. And those things I really love. And so Boss Mom became a thing because not just because I wanted to start a business, but because I have a true belief that we are women having babies, losing our identity as what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a mom, what it means to be a daughter, what it means to be a wife. And we are lost, wandering around the world, trying to raise children, feeling judging ourselves, feeling alone, feeling isolated. And it's completely unnecessary. We're feeling like we're crazy and there's something wrong with us, instead of feeling brave and empowered and excited. And so Boss Mom was really this way to say, hey, you've got a big, beautiful brain. You should be using it and you shouldn't feel bad about it. And if that means staying home and being homeschooling your kids, then you should feel great about it. If that means starting a business, you should feel great about it. And we kind of went with it, and it turns out I was right. And there's a crap ton of women feeling really crappy. And they're smart women that could be doing amazing things. And for the last 6 years, we've been helping them do that. And in that time, I get the question a lot. Did you get a divorce because your business became successful? And I said yes and no. And the yes part is in creating my business, I grew as a human being in a certain way, and my husband didn't grow with me. And that quote, love isn't looking at each other, it's looking in the same direction. I warn everybody that if you're going to start a business, be prepared to go on a really crazy walkabout. And if your spouse is not willing to go on that walkabout with you, then very often you don't grow in the same direction. And it's very hard when you're in one place and they're in the other to see things in the same way. And so, it's not because I worked too much or any of those things. It's because we became different people. And those different people just didn't see the world in the same way and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think you say something really important. It's not just a matter of the fact that like you were building a business. I mean, as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of self-development that goes in, right? You're growing as a person, you're learning new things. So a lot of times your awareness levels, your mindset is headed in one direction, and new things become more important than they were, for example, when you were married, right? So it's not just a matter of a business. I believe a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's like, you are on a rocket ship, right? And you can either join the rocket ship or you're going to get left behind, right? Because you're not in a position to sacrifice your trajectory, right, for somebody else, which is a harsh truth, but I very much feel the same way. I mean, I ended my relationship. A big reason was because I was on a trajectory and he just was not moving with me. And I had to let it go because it just wasn't working for me. I was on a different path. I wanted different things. And the disconnect just was becoming wider and wider and wider.
Yeah, I definitely think if you can't dream together, then
Mm-hmm.
that makes it hard. Like and I think that's a good way for people to think about it. Like when you sit down and you dream together, do you have the same dreams? Like my dreams involved, spending 3 months in Panama with the kids because we had these remote business, and he was a commercial banker. And to him, he was like, no, I get 2 weeks off. That's it. And we can't do that. You can't just take the kids somewhere. And I was like, why couldn't we just say that? Seems
Right.
like a perfectly logical thing for me to do. And so we couldn't dream together, and it actually caused fights to dream together. My dreams threatened him, and not because he was threatened by me as a human being, or he didn't like that I was a woman that was successful. It's the idea of the risk I was willing to take. And I think for a lot of my community and that are entrepreneurs, we take risks and we see the world that way. We see the world as a bunch of failures, and those failures lead to successes, and you're looking for those successes and you're figuring things out. But the falling is part of what the beauty of it is. And then there's so much opportunity. And there's a lot of times where we're married to somebody where that risk, it scares them, and it scares them in a way that closes us off to loving each other. And a lot of times that fear just takes over, and then it's very hard to fix it. And we had said this before we record. I have a friend who's in the midst of being separated, and I am the first one to tell her and everybody else, like, if you are separated or in that process, but there is love there, then you should work to find out how you can bring that love back,
Right.
in a really logical, forgiving, connected way. So that if you leave each other, if you decide to get divorced, it comes from a logical place to say, we just cannot love each other in the way that we both need. And we will actually serve ourselves and our children better to find the love that we both deserve somewhere else. But to separate because you hate somebody, or because you want to hurt them, or because you're just flat out angry, which I know how that feels. It's harder to come, like, it's harder to be happy, I think, in the long term, coming from that place. So it's like, I'd rather us all be able to sit back and go, okay, I made this a rational decision, and I know there is no chance for us for very logical reasons. And that may take a long time, by the way. This is not that's why people work with you, because I mean, that can take a long time. But I do think, like, our emotions, just like with our kids do things emotionally, and we for some reason think that we're not kids anymore, and that we're really rational, and we do things based off of logic and what we really want, and we're just as irrational and emotional as our kids. But the actions we take as adults have a lot of times a much more lasting effect than the things that because we don't get over stuff the way kids do.
Yeah.
Kids hate somebody one day and love them the next day, and then they forget they even hated them in the first place.
Right.
We don't do that. We hold it, and we hold it. And you even mentioned the stat about, women still being angry, which I don't know, I think you said like 50%.
Yeah. So 50% of women who are 5 to 10 years post divorce are still angry at their ex, versus men, it's a third. And to harbor that much anger and bitterness for that many years, I mean, what
Well, and
a
how can you
shame.
find love again?
Right.
Which I'm so torn, because I love the idea of raising women up and saying women can do anything, and being empowered, and being like, women can take over the world, and saying women don't need men. I don't believe that's true. I believe we have our roles, and they have their roles, and we do need each other. Or, like I mentioned, the some semblance of that role. Like, if two women want to get together, but one of them always assumes the dominant role of the person that keeps you safe. The women is the role of us as women. We are nurturers. That's why we get hurt so bad, right? We're the ones that are constantly thinking of other people. We're thinking about how they feel, and so we're reacting to that. We're thinking about what they would want, so we're doing those. And men are horrible at doing that, right? They're good at keeping us safe, and they want to love us in the best way, but the way that men love us is often in a way that is completely non-attentive. And then we sit there and we go, like I'll give us an example with my kids. I came home from vacation a day early, And so I called my, their dad, and I said, how about I get them a day early? Don't tell them and I'll surprise them, because how great would it feel to tell them that I'm here a day early because I miss them so much? He's like, great idea. So I get there. And in my mind, I have all of these ways that my kids are going to be so appreciative of me not, and believe me, for anybody that's divorced, once you're divorced, like the days off from kids, you're like, how does anybody have their kids? like some adulting days is nice.
Yes.
The kids for 2 seconds were so happy. And then they're like, so did you buy us something like on your vacation? And then they were home for 5 minutes and they're like, so can we go play with our friends? And I was like, in my mind, I was thinking they really would give a crap, that like they were going to love it. And then I realized, oh, like that's what I would want someone to do for me. I would want someone to come home a day early and be like, I can't live without you. I needed to see you a day early. But nobody else in my family gives a crap about that. They're like, great to see you, Mom. Okay, we're out. And I have to be okay with that, because my kids don't have the same love language as me. And my ex-husband doesn't have that's not something he would care about.
Yeah.
And we all do that. We all, like, women walk around nurturing and loving in the way that we want to be nurtured and loved, and then we get pissed off because nobody
We're not getting it back.
Way.
Well, and I think, you and I were talking about this, right? Is like the importance of love languages. And I have to tell you, it wasn't until I got divorced that I really started understanding how important that is. And I talk to a lot of clients, who have the same, it's sort of like I hit the repeat button every time, where it's like, why is he living this life with this person? This is what I wanted. And so many times I think that we not only have conversations in our head thinking that we're communicating what we want, but unless you understand or communicate what your own love language is, what your needs are, and then really identifying whether your partner is capable of being that for you, right? There's so much disconnect happening. And at the same time, it's also very healing once you understand, like my ex-husband, his love language is all about acts. Like it's all about acts of kindness, right? And my love language is touch and words of affirmation. Those are kind of two back to back for me. And so he would express his love language to me, thinking that was like,
like
working.
He cleans the kitchen for you and you're like, I don't care. I want you to like touch my leg while we're watching TV.
Right. Yes. Like, can you just hold my hand or like brush my butt as you walk by? Like just something. 100%. Right. And then at the same time, for me, I was using words of affirmation and touch when that didn't mean crap to him. Right. And I know that you and I talked about this, right? And that's a very big reason as to how you came to terms with your marriage ending, correct?
Yeah. And I have found, because this is, I like I said, behavioral psychology. So once this divorce happened, everybody came out of the woodworks that was separated on a second marriage. And I was like, I didn't even know these. It was like, once I had the beacon that was like, yes, I'm getting divorced, they were like, we should talk. Yeah. Like who knew?
Yeah. Or they're like, can we talk and figure out like, how'd you get to that? Cause like things are really bad. It's like all of a sudden you become this magnet.
A magnet. Yes. Yes. Well, and what I've discovered is for those of us where physical touch or words of affirmation are our love languages, it is the hardest to reconcile if you're with somebody who can't at least do one of those things. So if you're with a guy who does not communicate, he, like my ex-husband grew up in a family, they don't really hug, they don't discuss things, any of those things. So it was asking a lot for him to do words of affirmation. And the physical touch part, if you're with somebody who just isn't very sexual, isn't very touchy, if those to me are really hard, I've found with women that are hard to reconcile because we feel as though there's something wrong with us. Like if you don't want to touch me all the time, what is wrong with me? I feel like I'm somebody that's not that hard to touch my hair or touch my, those things. It's not even, doesn't have to be massively sexual, but I know how that feels, that you begin to feel like there is something wrong with you. And it's hard to get over that. To whereas, and the acts of service, I don't want to clean our kitchen. I want to hire somebody to clean our kitchen. That's why I started a business. And to him, that meant that I didn't want to do any of those things. Like there was, how do you show value if you're not doing these things for each other? And he wanted to spend time together. Quality time was his, right? But he didn't want to talk about anything we wanted to talk about. So if he's quality time, but you guys don't want to have the same conversations, then it's really hard. I think introverts, extroverts, same thing. Like we attract each other. Extroverts and he's an introvert. You have to recognize it as an extrovert. You have to concede to the introvert because you're a speak to think person. So you want to talk it out. You want to have the conversation in real time and come to a solution. They need space to go and think it out. And if you try and pressure them into talking, they get very frustrated and angry, not because they don't know what to say. It's actually because they don't know what to say to you. And it's not because they don't have something to say. It's because they need space to think about it, to say it.
Hey, it's Wendy here. I wanted to take a quick break from the conversation to let you know about another free event I'm hosting on Tuesday, September 29th about divorce and narcissism. If you're somebody who is divorcing a narcissist or someone with narcissistic characteristics, this is something you don't want to miss. You will learn what you need to know before you divorce a narcissist, how to successfully negotiate with one, learn financial hacks, how to set boundaries and co-parent with a narcissist, and so much more. The event is free and it's live, and all you have to do is register today by visiting divorceandnarcissism.com. Again, the event is live on Tuesday, September 29th, so block your calendar today. And now let's jump back into the conversation. I think that those are some of the challenges that people don't necessarily see when they're in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus when you're outside of it, you start seeing it. I mean, what would you say, what would you say some of the biggest challenges were, because as you're overlapping divorce with being an entrepreneur, right? And, working, et cetera, juggling two kids, what would you say your biggest challenges were, and what did you do to overcome them during that time?
You mean challenges as far as during the divorce or separation or leading up to it?
No, during the divorce and
Yeah.
separation, just kind of juggling everything and
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I generally tell people I'm a horrible example because our separation was really clean. It was really painful, but it was really clean. So we, I remember, um, I didn't want to do it anymore. I was tired. I was exhausted. I'm air quoting. We divided and conquered a lot, which means we basically just didn't see each other. And I was so bitter and angry that I started sleeping on the couch, which I didn't want to do. Like I'm a big believer in same bed and cuddle, like all those things. And 3 weeks I slept on the couch before he noticed I wasn't getting into bed.
wow.
3 weeks. Oh my God. It makes me want to cry just thinking about it. 3 weeks that he literally didn't know I existed before and did not touch me once ever. Didn't notice that I was sleeping on the couch or notice that something might be wrong. I mean, I was befuddled. And so I just said, I think we should separate. Like, I think we need a break because if my existence isn't relevant to you, then then what the hell? So he, he turns around and he just said, being married to you is exhausted. Or it's exhausting. And I was like, okay, well then we should
Wow.
probably just get a divorce. And so and that was the day before Thanksgiving. So he left and my parents came over the next day for Thanksgiving and they're like, where's Ryan? And I was like, he's not coming. We're getting a divorce. So basically the whole day my mom just wept. And he moved out he had found a place, and on Christmas Day he moved into his new place. So it's like the holidays for several years were not the most fun. But it was very clean. We both had our own assets. We had just sold our house and had moved into a place. We had just put a down payment to build our dream home, which, to be honest, was, I think, a lot of the catalyst, because when you think about building a dream home and who you're going to live in it with, that can set you down a path of, is this my dream?
Right.
Yeah, so but getting a divorce was in their bylaws, so we got the money back because we were getting a divorce. The house, we just split the profit in half. He had his own 401k, I had my own 401k, and we made similar money. And so we literally we just had a mediator and we went in. We don't owe each other child support, we don't owe each other alimony. We have one bank account where we just put in and split everything for the kids in half. And it was easy from that perspective. And we were really like, neither of us looked at each other and said, you're a horrible parent or you're a horrible person. And I want to hurt you, or I don't think my kids are safe with you, or any of those things. So we just, and he's a banker. He likes spreadsheets. So he came with a spreadsheet where we figured out, days, and we were respectful when somebody said, hey, can I switch this day? And over the last, 3 or 4 years, we've gotten a good schedule going. So that was easy. Like the logistical aspect of separating was easy. I had the first 2 years because we were separated for a year, and then the divorce was official after the first year, just for health insurance-y reasons.
Mhm.
I went through, like, I would be great. I would feel awesome. And then I called my mom one day and I was like, I think there's something wrong with me. I'm having heart palpitations. She's like, oh, you're having an anxiety attack. And I was like, oh, okay. And then so I got some pills for an anxiety attack. And then I was like, well, I feel dead inside now. So I feel like this isn't a good solution. Whatever they've got me on just makes me want to lay down and not do anything. I had bouts of, I'd never known what depression was until I got divorced. And then there were just days where I was like, do I make like, I think one of the biggest things is maybe I just don't make good decisions. Like if I made the wrong decision about the person I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with, then maybe I just don't make good decisions. So in my business, I ended up having to hire a sales rep because I was sabotaging sales. I would talk to somebody and they'd be a perfect fit for like my group coaching program. And I'd be like, I don't know, maybe you should think about it. I'm just, like I had to have somebody hire for me because I started thinking maybe I just don't make good decisions. So I stopped making decisions. And I think that was one of the hardest things, is just not recognizing that the stages of grief are a real thing, not recognizing that even though we did the right thing by separating, that it would be emotionally devastating, and that I would question those things all the time, that he would still not do the things that I wanted him to do. So that would be hard. There was never apologizing. There was never any of those things, that I would just have to forgive him, even if he never knew there was something that needed forgiving. And then I would have to realize that in some ways I would sabotage my own life without even knowing it, and have to figure out what that looked like and get help and support for people out of those situations. So yeah, I mean, even in the most amicable, easy of divorces, it took me about 2 years to stabilize all the things.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really beautiful example, because I feel like people think like if it's amicable, it's just supposed to poof be super easy, or you both wanted it. And it's not. It doesn't matter, and I say this a lot. It doesn't matter if it was your choice, if it was their choice, if it was amicable, if there was infidelity, like it doesn't matter. Everybody goes through the exact same stages of grief, because marriage is something that creates a life that the two of you, and I do think a lot of it has to do with the dreams, right? And the life that you co-create. And all of a sudden, when that's done, especially as women, you said this even earlier in our conversation, is we identify ourselves so closely as our role in this marriage that we lose ourselves, right? And I think it's wonderful how you've been able to really rise and create and stand in the power of your own identity, and how Boss Moms really does inspire the rest of us, me being one of them. Like I've been listening to you since I started my own business, which was almost 3 years ago. And you've always been a source of inspiration for me as an entrepreneur, and somebody who I aspire and look up to, because you're relatable, you're transparent, right? And none of us are immune to emotion, right? We all go through hard stuff to get to the other side. And so, in terms of how you sort of leveraged your divorce to kind of propel Boss Moms. I mean, Boss Moms is an incredibly large brand and business these days. Like, how did you leverage sort of and take that momentum from your divorce and really use that to fuel your business? Because
Oh gosh,
pretty remarkable.
I'm not sure I would say I used it to so it actually, when I separated, it took me about at least 3 or 4 months to get up the guts to tell my audience I was getting a divorce, because I thought everybody's going to hate me. Everybody's going to think I'm a fraud. How can I be Boss Mom? And then now I'm getting a divorce. When I finally did the video, and it took me a really long time to think through how I wanted, because I was also really scared that I would then give permission to a lot of people to get a divorce. Like there's a stat somewhere about like, if you hang out with someone who's divorced, how much more likely you are to get
Right. It's
divorced.
contagious.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't think everybody should just go out and get one. I think it's a big decision, and it's, and then you should think through it and go to counselor, like talk to somebody and have it be just like getting married should be a conscious decision. So I was really scared. And I remember going to, so I at the time I had the same personal trainer as like Amy Porterfield and Pat Flynn and a big group of larger entrepreneurs. And he had a 1-day retreat here in San Diego. And so we all went, and I remember sitting there, and I'm in like the house that we were in, it was a couch. And then there were these like lawn chairs that were low. So it's like, you couldn't see me. I was down in this little lawn chair. And someone asked a question, and I don't know what the question was anymore, but it prompted me to say, I'm getting a divorce, and I don't know how to tell my community, because my community is to moms, and I don't, and and 3 or 4 people raised their hand, one of them, which was Rich Brooks, who I'm good friends with now, who does Agents of Change. And he said, I'm going through a divorce. And then Mike Kim goes, I'm going through a divorce. And, and I made really great friends because they're like, let's talk about this thing that's happening. And they all said, your audience is going to love you anyway. Like, you are not, you are not like, wife boss, you're boss mom. Like, why does being married have to be a part of it? They're like, I bet you there's a ton of your community that's single or divorced or never been married or, whatever that is. And it kind of empowered me, just like at Boss Moms, you want to be around people that go, you're not crazy, you're brave, like you're going to be fine. And I did the video, and it definitely opened up the group. I think because I'm divorced, it made a lot of people who aren't the perfect cookie cutter family, which is pretty much most people, felt a little more like it's possible.
Normal.
I think, yeah, like I think there's a lot of women who looked at me. I've actually had clients. I've had a client where I said, she mentioned something about my husband. I was like, oh, I'm not married. I'm divorced. And she's like, I like you more for that. And I was like, why do you like me more? Because I'm divorced. And she's like, because that means you're not a perfect person. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I feel like a divorce shouldn't have to be the thing that tells you that, but I'll take it.
But I think, you bring up a really good point, which is that I think people, well, it's my mission, right? My entire mission in this lifetime for me is to change the conversation around divorce, for people to see it as an empowering experience that women go through to be able to find their identity and voice and design and create a life that they love. And I think what's so incredible about your story is that, so many of us are so terrified to admit that we're divorced because we're afraid of the judgment. And a lot of times people don't know how to handle, people who are not going through it don't necessarily understand how to handle when somebody says they're divorced. That's why they always say to you like, oh, I'm so sorry, and it drives me nuts because please don't be sorry for me. This is a choice that I made, and I love my life and I'm happier for it. But I think that there is just, I think people assume like, oh, well, boss mom must be like, well, you're a mom, that means you're married. Well, no, it doesn't. There are all different kinds of moms, and moms get to be married, moms get to be divorced, moms get to have sperm donors and do it on their own, right? So I think what I love so much about your community is, what you talk about a lot of the biggest takeaway is that you are not alone. There are other people like you out there, right? And unless you start talking about yourself and your experience and being transparent, like, you're going to still maintain the fact that you think you're crazy, but you're not. And it's so important for women to hear this, is that there are a lot of different boss moms look all different types of ways. And I love that you foster that in your community.
Yeah. And there's a story I have in the Confessions of a Boss Mom, the second book I wrote, which is a collection of stories to show you're not alone. There's all these women in these different situations. But one of the stories I talk about is I dropped the kids off. I was going to Vegas. I was married at the time. We were going to spend the first weekend away from the kids. And I forgot the kids' lunches. So I go to my mom's, I drop the kids off, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot their lunches. I'm worst mom ever. And I call them and I'm like, oh my gosh. And they're like, we'll feed them lunch. We'll put it on your tab. It'll be fine. like, okay. And I just kept saying, like, I feel terrible. I'm the worst. How am I going to have it? And my mom was like, how snooty of you to think that you were the only mom that has ever forgotten a kid's lunch. Like, who do you think you are? What do you think, you're special? And I remember it hit me in such a weird way to be like, why would you phrase it like that? Why would you phrase to be snooty when you're beating yourself up about something? But it really helped me reframe this idea that there is a little bit of that victimhood that says, oh, I'm the only one that's been left. I'm the only one who got cheated on. I'm the only one who he wouldn't touch me or love me. Or I'm the only one where, he just kept being mean about the fact that I wanted to start my own business, or that I was a stay-at-home mom and wasn't making money, or whatever it is that the situation is. We sit down and we kind of tell ourselves, and I've done it too. So, but, I have to constantly think about this and frame it in that way, is that I constantly go, oh, poor me. This isn't how, I'm dealing with this thing. And you're like, yeah, so are like a million other people. They're like, getting cheated on is like, yeah, sorry. It's called everybody's been cheated on. Why? Because we're human beings and we're idiots. like we're just like, we don't know how to love each other. We don't know how to communicate. We don't even know how to share the things we want to share when we want to share them. Nobody in school is taught how to communicate. We're basically just taught how to look at people and feel judged and judge people. Like, that is our natural state of being, and nobody teaches us any other way. And if we stop for a second, even if it's outside of relationships, somebody cuts you off and you go, oh, how snooty of me to think that I'm the only one that gets cut off, or how snooty am I, to think that guy actually even knows I exist. Right. I remember having something that was bothering me, like a blemish. And I like was so self-conscious about it, and the friend that I was with knows that that's my way of trying to think, that when my mom says those things. And she just turned to me. She's like, what do you think? Everybody's looking at you. Like, nobody cares about you, Dana. Like, nobody in this restaurant gives a crap that you exist. They are all in their own conversations, doing their own thing. Nobody notices that thing that you think is wrong with you except for you. So just get over it. And I was like, thank you. I needed that. Yes, you're absolutely right. Nobody cares that I exist in this restaurant right now. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a really good thing.
It is. And I think it brings up, something really important, which is having self-compassion, right? And it's not something that we allow ourselves enough. Like, I'm sure you agree with this statement. There's so many things I say to myself that I would never utter to a friend, right? Like, would you ever call somebody else like, oh, Wendy, you're being so stupid? Would you say something mean like that to anybody else? You would actually think twice before saying that to somebody else. But yet we don't think about that when we're the self-talk, right? The self-negative talk. And so, one of the things I'm very passionate about, and I practice a lot very consciously, is self-compassion. And, I think whether it's divorce, whether it's, building a business, right? Like, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes, and letting go of the judgment and just knowing that our best looks different every day is okay.
Yeah. And I love to tell people that the beautiful, creative, loving parts of you are completely unique, and all the crappy parts of you are completely average. Like, your failures are average. Your blemishes are average. Like, the things you think are wrong with you are average. Everybody has them. There's nothing special about you. Like, the only uniqueness that you should focus on is your curiosity and your creativity and the way you love and the compassion, and the positive things are unique. Be unique in those spaces. All the negative things, you're completely average. So stop worrying about it.
No, and I think that that's I love how you say that. I never even thought about it that way, right? Is that, I guess the way I call it, but that it's neutral, right? Like, negative, there is no negative or positive. Everything is just neutral. But, it's neutral. And to your point, like, neutral it's average, right? There's nothing, it doesn't make you any more or less special. It just makes you just like everybody else. So
it does. Yeah. Yeah. Which is good. I think we need to all remember that all the pain we feel is completely average. It's completely normal. We all feel that pain. Not everybody gets to feel joy and love and beauty in the world. So when you strive for that, that makes you unique.
yeah, that's beautiful and so well said. Dana, thank you so much for being a guest on my episode today. And I would love for you to share with everybody how they can find you, connect with you. And I also know that you have a free little gift to give our listeners.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, boss-mom.com is the easiest way. It's our site. It'll get you to our Boss Mom podcast, our Boss Mom's Facebook group, all of that fun stuff, all of our free resources. What's the free thing I'm going to give
It's the
everybody?
5-day build authority challenge.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, that's a great question, Wendy. What am I giving everybody? Yes, our 5-day. Sorry, y'all. The kids had to put costumes on today. I mean, getting kids dressed and putting costumes on in the morning. And then I have a daughter that's 5 years old. So she wants rings and she wants her special shoes she can't walk in. It's a whole situation. I already need a nap and it's like 10:30 in the morning. Yes, our 5-day authority challenge. It's amazing. So if you just go to boss-mom.com/authority, it will bring you to there. And it is 5 different days that walk you through the 5 elements of building authority online. It's really great. And even for those that have considered starting a business, or you're thinking about it, or you spend a lot of time on social media and you find that you're sharing content that people are interested in and you're wondering if there's something there, it's a really great way to formulate your thoughts into concise opinions that can be shared to help you to become known for something that can either continue to be monetized or develop being monetized. And it's a unique methodology that I use to walk people through. Each day is one different element. And we've had thousands of women go through it, and it's really effective. So I highly recommend.
Wonderful. Dana, thank you so much for being here today and for your generosity. I'm so appreciative of you and the work that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you got some incredible insight and learned some new information that helps you to navigate wherever it is that you are in your process. Sending you guys tons of love, light, and joy. I cannot wait to see you guys in the next episode. Mwah. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this episode with someone you know or spread the word on social media. This is how I reach more divorcees around the world and provide them with the support they need to create their next best life. And I would also love to continue the conversation with you. So please friend me on Facebook, join my private Facebook group, The Divorce Rehab, and follow me on Instagram at Divorce Rehab with Wendy. I'll see you next time.